It's incredible, Dave. I mean, as you said, you've been talking to people about their money for 30 years.
All right, then. What's up, Brian? What's up, Clyde, Don? I see y'all in there. Um, Sorry about the delay. It's an unfinished work show. I am Mike Lake, and not really sure what happened with my streaming platform. It just wasn't showing the video, so I had to bust the whole thing down and basically just build it up real quick. So my bad for being late. And let's get it, man. Let's get into this episode. I need money. And it's going to be an episode about money, if that wasn't obvious by the title. Now, I don't know what movies y'all watch or how far y'all go back, but if you my age, you probably saw a little movie called How High, and you remember the homie, I Need Money. And as I was doing my research and developing and watching videos and whatnot for the background to the show, he just kept popping into my head. I think he was played by Hits from the Streets. I'm just giving all the deep cut references to go back. But anyway, go watch the movie. His character was just a side character for comedic relief. He was just in the film. Neither here nor there. Anyway, let's get into the money episode. So part of my own personal growth was, I keep telling y'all every episode, and I'm going to keep beating y'all in the head with it, but it's to basically address different aspects of me, of myself, identifying certain things within myself that I want to improve. And I talked to y'all about my fitness, I talked to y'all about faith, I talked to y'all about my relationship, I talked to y'all about a few things, and one of the, I wouldn't say final pieces, but probably one of the most integral pieces to the whole thing is money. If you know anything about it, stupid thing to say, but money basically ties into everything. In order to even get into some of those other spaces, you might have to pay a little something in order to help with your self-improvement. Even if it's something as small as purchasing a book or a class, or if you have to pay for a gym subscription or membership, if you have to for your relationship to go out on dates and buy gifts or whatever it is that you might need to do, it all kind of throws around money. And I know for a lot of people I've talked to and ran into, even myself and my spouse, money has always been this thing that's there. We go to work, we pursue it, but ultimately you have different entry points from childhood that might affect your thoughts or your processes around money. Excuse me. So specifically for me, or for my gender, men, money is just kind of that thing that you either win on or you lose by. And a lot of people live day to day, check to check, with broke type mentality. Now, the thing about broke mentality, you could be a millionaire, you could be poor on benefits, whatever. Broke mentality is a thing that can afflict anybody. And what it basically, in my mind, it means that you have this culture, or you live within this culture that you don't have money. Now, for some, that could be that they have it and they just want to keep it all, otherwise known as being cheap or frugal. For some, it could be not having it, and then as soon as you get it, spending it. But either way, both are going to keep you broke, in a sense. Even if you stack tons of money in your mattress, or if you put a bunch in the bank, or whatever you end up doing with it that isn't working for you. Notice I said working for you, steering away from some of the later topics like investments and things. But if it's just in your savings, or if it's in your mattress, or if you spend it as soon as you get it, all three of those people are effectively broke. You're not earning anything with the money that you earn, effectively wasting your time from the amount of work and effort it took you to acquire that money, because money don't grow on trees. So broke mindset can keep you in that space. We've all seen those people. We probably all even been those people where you might have let's say a $2,000 car, and you might have at least $5,000+ in assets, or not even assets, and accessories attached to it, rims and sound and whatever. And I'm not gonna act like I'm above it. Like, I haven't been that guy. I think my first 3 cars that I owned, and we're talking from youth here, from 17 to like 25, I think all 3 of those cars had rims of some sort on it, and probably weren't worth half the amount of the rims that was on it. But part of that is culture. Another part of that is just the way I identify with obtaining things that made me feel like I had money, whether I actually had it or not. At this point, though, I'm almost 40, and I've raised a child to 18, and I say I with the help of my current spouse and my son's mom. We raised a kid in different conversations surrounding money, allowances, and checking accounts and savings, and those things all went through what they went through. And even through the process of being a parent, started to see money a little bit different. For one, had to spend a lot to keep the boy above ground in various ways. 2, had to spend a lot because the court said I had to. That's neither here nor there. But just the ways you have to pour into a whole other person outside of yourself will change the way you see money. I know for a lot of people, once you have kids, things get different. Those cars with the rims on it weren't as readily accessible or even necessary when it was the option of looking like I had money, or actually having money enough to like feed my son, to get that Similac, or to buy the clothes for, school clothes, and pay for field trips and all these crazy things. But even if you're not a parent, you live in these streets today, and we're currently going through a recession. And right now, during said recession, the way inflation is just kicking through my chest is quite nuts. Because I wasn't padded enough before the recession started for me to kind of weather some of the storms. Some of you might be. Some of you might have some assets keeping you above float. Some of you might have a high income. I currently am not in either of those boats. So I say that to basically say this. There's a bunch of variables as it relates to money. Your education level plays a part of it. Your upbringing as it relates to money, whether you saved or not, plays a part of it. Whether you take the opportunities when you have an abundance of money to invest it and put it in somewhere safe, or put it in something that can earn you money, is also a part of it. And then there's this aspect of like variables you can't control, such as inflation and economy, COVID, all these things that could play a factor in what level of I need money you might be at. I should have had like a chart, like a thermometer based on levels of how much do you need money. I don't think I know a single person who's just like, nah, I'm good. I think for the most part, we all in various positions need money. So another thing that was happening behind the scenes while I was I've literally been sitting here for about an hour, prepped for the show, before my computer decided I want to be a jerk. I was pulling together all the different production aspects that I needed for the show. And it might take me a second, but we're going to work through this together. We got some videos, we got some cutaways, some clips, some articles, and different things to help fill out the entirety of this point, because I'm by no means a financial advisor, nor am I the guy that you want. I'm not a CPA, I guess is the easiest way to say it. I'm not an accountant, I'm not any of those things. I'm just a guy out here trying to make myself better by improving my financial status, and not just from an income point of view, but just the way we think about money, breaking those broke mindsets and setting some financial goals so we can hit them and then move on to the next level of financial goals. So let's get into the facts of money. So as you know, I told you facts are principles I decided I wanted to live by. These are the things that affected me the most in my self-improvement since whenever it was. Facts stands for faith, accountability, community, teaching, and self-care. And the first one is faith. What are some of your beliefs about money? And as some of you are watching here live and some of you are watching this on playback, I want you to comment with just some of what those beliefs are. I know some of the comment, I actually wrote them down so I wouldn't be scrambling around trying to think off the top of the head. Some of the common ones that come up, the phrases we hear, such as like the money is the root of all evil. Money is good. It's basically paper you exchange for goods and services. Money can be security. There's phrases like money can't buy you happiness. Biggie said more money, more problems. The church says you got to pay at least 10% of your income towards tithes. The church said, the Bible said that. And the church backs it, obviously, because we should be putting in, if that is your belief system. There's charity, people who give to charity. There's people who panhandle. And I know some of us live on both sides of that fence on, if I got it, I'll give. And there's others who say, I ain't giving them nothing. But all of these are beliefs, and they all play into things that we've learned through osmosis from our parents or watched on TV or just acquired through conversation or the biggest, best one or the most likely one is life experience. Life showing you a thing or two about money. If you ever overdrafted, that's a real quick lesson you learn as soon as you get a bank account. Like, wait a minute, I owe y'all money because I spent too much of my money? Or I guess it's technically their money? I don't know. How does that work? In any case, your beliefs about money can color the way you move with it. If you plan properly and you budget and you put in these certain systems that can set you up for success, you may not have that stressful of a relationship with money. But if you did it and you don't, you might find yourself always scrambling, always trying to stash some away, always trying to basically create like a nest egg for yourself to be safe, even when you are actually safe. There are people who just live these lives where they're just acquire. I need more. And they're spending all their time. In fact, I was just watching Succession, and that is kind of like the underlying theme of that family. Billionaires by their own right, and just constantly in this state of like just nonsense trying to get it, basically. And there's a litany of shows, examples and movies and TV of people who, even like, some of those famous drug tales where people have the money, they'll have infinite amount of money and they're still on the pursuit, like Pablo Escobar and people like that. But anyway, the point as it relates to faith and money is our beliefs can inform that relationship and what we do with it. And in some of the accompanying videos that we'll see here today, you'll see some smart people, some people who are actually CPAs, some people who are actually CEOs or CFOs or whatever they may be, tell you that part of your belief about money should be informed by those who have acquired it and who have a good, healthy means of saving, such as like Dave Ramsey. In any case, up next is going to be, and this is actually real interesting. Next fact about money is accountability. What plans or budgets do you have in place for your money? The simplest form of this is a budget. A straight up, either handwritten or Excel spreadsheet or some form of, here's how much I make, here's the things I have to pay for, here's how much I have left over, and here's what I'm going to do with that. It doesn't get a whole lot deeper than that, but the way you set up these systems and the way you design that hierarchy could play a lot into your day-to-day life. But the thing about accountability is having the self-awareness to understand who you are in that scope. I was watching, I don't even remember what video it was, but these guys, they created this faith-based money teaching program, and I literally cannot think of the name of it right now. In any case, they both are self-described as one is a spender and one is a saver. And I could even attest in my own relationship, one of us is a spender and the other is a saver. And I'll be openly honest and say I'm the spender. My spouse is the saver. That doesn't mean anything here or there. I'm not blowing all our funds. I'm not gambling or anything crazy, but I am more inclined to be willing to just kind of, hey, I want it, so I bought it. And she's definitely more of the, we need to have a set plan for however we're going to acquire it. No matter what the cost is, it could be as cheap as $20, $30 or high as $500. She's going to take the time to sit down and draw out a plan and make it. And that's why she's better with our money than I am. And that's why I actually defer a lot of the budgeting aspects as far as, and she's a wizard with Excel. She'll love that, actually. I wizard with Excel. But she definitely sets up the systems and the things. And I've had budgets even prior to, I've been alive a lot longer than I've been with her. But I've had budgets, but she's exceptional at it. So in my relationship, I definitely defer that to her. And I listen to, as far as what she says in terms of what we have versus what we need. Now, what we come up with together as a couple, the ideas and the plans and the ultimate end goal of what we're trying to do, that's both of us putting in. Or in a lot of ways, I'm good with ideas, and then she's part of that execution part of it. So that's one for me personally. But I'd be curious what y'all doing as far as a budget. Some people use different programs like QuickBooks, and that's for businesses. There's a lot of them out there, even in the app format like Pocket Guard, and what are some of the other ones? I literally cannot think right now. As soon as I press stop on this pod, all these ideas are going to come flooding back into my head. But a lot of your banking systems, such as my bank, which is Chase, they have them internally. They can show you percentages of what you spend, how much you're saving, what's coming in versus what's going out. Also, the all-important, what are you spending it on, which could be a make or break. For a lot of us, the food amounts is too high, and the savings amounts aren't quite high enough. And that's funny. In any case, what are some of the other systems of accountability as it relates to your money that's out there? For one, I know as it relates to tithing, I've been making a concerted effort to put in an actual 10%. It's not something it's something I grew up used to, but it's not something that I had as a part of my budget in full. I'm still tithing, just not necessarily at 10%, but over these last 3 months, I've been on it. And my church actually does a really good job of, they have a website, the website of the church. You can set up your giving, schedule it out, have it come out, and actually get receipts and everything that you need. It's 2023, so there's a lot of different electronic ways, and computers could be, make your life a whole lot easier. But let's look at some of the big ones. Another system of accountability is FICO, your credit score. In the whatever your opinion about credit scores are, the fact is we live in a country where it matters. Where if you want to borrow money, they're going to look at that. If you want to, and borrow money could be as small as a loan, or it could be as big as like a car or a house, or even bigger, investments in businesses and such. But your credit score plays a big role in that whole thing. And depending on your age, if you're younger, like say my son, I could go into further detail about it. I probably could do a whole episode about credit and that whole thing. But for the majority of people, based on the analytics that I've seen, y'all old enough to know what FICO is. Get your credit score up. I've been working on that. I actually feel pretty proud of where I'm at compared to where I was. Because early in life, I made a lot of decisions for my family, but not necessarily smart decisions overall for my money, which kept us afloat. But I bore the brunt of that, which was my job, and I did it. But that's neither here nor there. FICO is one. Another one is banking. Like I said, your bank has a lot of systems, a lot of ways for you to track what you're spending, track what you're saving, open up different types of accounts, high yield savings accounts and things like that. If you got it like this and you're up there with your money, which I'm not, you can hire an accountant. An accountant will be an amazing way for you to keep track of what's going on. You pay somebody who has a degree in exactly this, how to count your pennies and tell you what's smart for your bank account and what's not. And CPA, which is the same thing, an accountant. So in conclusion with that, something's got to keep us in check. Like anything else you're doing out here, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to get your money right, if you're trying to get your relationship right, if you're pursuing climbing Mount Everest, there has to be some form of accountability. And as it relates to money, it's really, really easy to lose track of what's what if you're not paying attention, if you don't have something set up to tell you when you're off track. You got to keep yourself accountable, but then you also can put other systems in place to help keep you accountable. Let me read some of these comments while I get ready for the next session. Dave says, money's not the root of all evil. The love or greed of money is. I think I agree with that. I think I've heard people add that additional caveat into the phrase money being the root of evil is the pursuit of it and the things you are or aren't willing to do. The quick avenues or the, how do I want to say this, the less than good ways that people pursue money to others' detriment could be actually more of the root of that evil. But we understand where that phrase is coming from and what they're trying to get at. It's more of a cautionary, don't let money be the major driver of what you do in your day-to-day if it's at the detriment of others around you. Tribal Chief says he don't believe in budgeting. You should spend every penny out your account until you get paid again. That's absolute nonsense, and I know he is lying. I know him, and I know that's not how he lives his life. So if you want advice on what not to do, don't do that. Don't spend every single dime of your money and be out here looking crazy, borrowing more or hitting up loan sharks or Amscot or any of those crazy harebrained schemes to get you on to the next check just for you to spend it all again. You got to be smarter than that. I could tell you from personal experience in my youth, there were times where I pursued avenues of, I'll just name some of them, Amscot or quick payday loans and things of that nature, just to try to get to the next thing and find myself paying back more than it was worth to borrow, instead of just being smart on the front end and saving and budgeting and putting some away and spending it as it relates to my budget and my plans. That man's a fool. Spend every penny. Do not do that. All right. Next, we're going to talk about community. Is your money just for you or your family, or do you also give it to others? Now, here's where the biggest. I've told y'all this over and over. I'm never going to not stop saying it. I'm a believer. I'm a Christ follower, and part of what the Bible says is, love thy neighbor, pay your tithes, and I can go down. I'm not a pastor, so I'm not going to give y'all a sermon. But the gist of it is this. I find that if I have it, if I've been blessed enough to have it, I should be blessed enough to pass it on within reason. Again, not to the detriment of me, my budget, my family, or anything like that. But within reason, I definitely don't hoard my money. And I wouldn't suggest that any of y'all do that either. Some of the richest people on this planet, and I know I could already hear, I wonder what that is. Maybe it's this. Somebody's telling me I got reverb, so I'm finna. Let me know if that's still going on right now. I think I fixed it. I think it just doubled up on the sound from the other error video. But y'all let me know if my sound good. Am I still getting echo back or anything? Somebody hit me in the comments. Where was I? Oh, community. Sharing your money. So whether that be to total strangers or homeless folk or anybody that you find in need, there might even be some other ways where you could do it in a way that fits well within your budget or your plan, right? So what I basically mean by that is there are charities, and I know there's a whole mess of ins and outs as it relates to how much of your donated money goes toward the thing that you're donating it to. But it's not that hard to do research. There are independent, there are people who write articles. There's independent surveys who would tell you exactly, say for instance, like the Salvation Army. When you donate $1, here's how much, or when you donate $100, here's how much of that goes towards this, keeping them afloat as a business. to sustaining things, administration, and then here's how much goes to the people that they're donating to. Just a quick Google search should be able to point you in the direction of the charity that applies the majority of your giving to the cause that you're giving it to. There's tons of causes for, say, like cancer. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. And I can't say that in my personal life I know anybody who absolutely does nothing but earn their money and keep it. I think for the most part, most people who are good in a way, and this isn't a barometer of good or bad. What I mean is most people who are people who live in society understand that if they're blessed, that they should share that in some way, shape, or form. Whether that is direct monetary, passing money to panhandlers, donating to a specific cause. I know there's a lot of people who have questions about GoFundMe's and the legitimacy of each one of those funds that people are trying to obtain. We've heard the stories of the false ones, but I'm sure there's a lot of good ones that actually are applied to the thing that they say that they're applying it to. I think the easiest way for me to divorce myself from the idea that I'm just like pouring into like a money pit or some cause that I don't believe in was a sermon my pastor, Pastor Lane, rest in peace, gave way back when I was a teenager, like 15, 16 years old, and it stuck with me. It still sticks with me to this day. He talked about, and there's some Bible scholars like my man Brian in here who could probably, and Dave, who could point us to the exact verses, but the gist of the sermon was it's not your job to judge what it's for or to gauge what it's for. It's basically, if you have it, you've been put in position to aid someone, you give it to them, and then let God judge them on the back end, determining what they do with it. They lie, they say they need, you know what? I seen this lady, I was leaving the gym like 2-3 weeks ago. This lady was out there looking dejected, and she's out there with some kids, and she was like, hey, can you help me with some money for my kids? I want to buy some food for my kids. And she pointed to the Burger King over there. And I was like, yeah, I don't have any cash like I normally don't, but I could go buy you the food. And she said, no. She's like, if you can give me the money, that could help out a lot, blah, 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 blah. So me being me and growing up where I grew up, I see the okie doke. I see what's happening. I see the kids. Don't get it twisted. I wasn't gauging if the kids was hungry or not. Honestly, I just saw them. They were over there. For all I know, they had just ate and she was trying to acquire money. I have no idea what was happening here. But in that quick second, I had to check myself, and basically just I offer her again. Like she kind of walked off, and I'm sure she was just waiting on the next person to come out. But I kind of said, you know what, ma'am, if your kids need this food, I will go over there with my debit card and I will buy you food and I will get it for you and your kids. And I did. And for all I know, they had extra food they didn't need, and she was probably tight because she wanted that money for something else, but none of that's my business. None of it's on my heart or my soul or anything to do with me as it relates to what she did after that. If I had cash, I probably would have gave it to her. But these days, who's running around with cash? In any case, community. What you do for your community can come back to you also in positive ways. In a lot of ways, community money, we pay taxes. When you pay your taxes, the idea behind taxes is that you take a certain amount of your earnings and you put it aside, similar to tithing, and it's put towards things to keep things looking and moving smoothly, such as the roadways, bridges, power lines, etc. That's community money, and that's one you don't really have a choice in. The government say you pay it or you don't. And if you pay it, you're fine. If you don't, I'm sure I don't even want to find out what happened on the other side of that. But I know it comes with penalties and fines and potential jail time, and I ain't trying to deal with none of that. But even more so than just the taxes I pay, even more so than just the tithes I pay, even more so than the little times I give to folks here and there are other ways that you can give back. There are youth football teams. There are boys and girls clubs and other charities, group homes, and just tons of things that you can apply some of what you earn, some of what you're blessed to continue to have, to others in the community to help them out. If you don't want to give it to a panhandler, don't. But find a cause or a person or a place. There's scholarship funds. There's tons of things out there. People need the people who are blessed enough to have money to pour into their food banks. There are a litany of things that are just popping into my head as I'm talking. as it relates to community. But if you have the mindset that your money is your own, and don't get me twisted, it is, but I would, as your friend, I would recommend that you explore other avenues, because there's a level. If you did your budget in the accountability section, there is a level of, we're good. Like, my family's straight. We got savings. We got rainy day funds, college funds. There's ways where you could be set up and you're all good. And then there's that additional money that you have that you could put towards something to help somebody out other than yourself. Because the truth is, one day it could be you. You could be down bad and out here hoping somebody toss you some pennies to help feed your kid out front of the Burger King. And maybe you don't sound believable. Maybe you got some weight on you and people like, you eat. You don't need food for money, or money for food. And I'm not going to give it to you. And now me and my kids going hungry because we're in a bad situation. But you get the point. When you ask yourself, is my money just for me or my family? Just understand that if you are in a position where you need to make sure you're good, your bills are paid, your savings are stacked, do that. But when you do make it to that point, once you hit that goal of we're safe, everything's gravy, what could I do to help others who might be in a similar situation? You know, the interesting thing about giving is the way. So I read an article. Actually, I think I have it here. So the way we are raised as it relates to money, and even some of these questions about panhandling and tithing and charity and all these other things, it's all taught to us by our parents. And in this article, I believe it's by Elizabeth Gravier, it was on CSNBC. The number one money behavior kids learn from their behavior. So she spoke with a CPA, a dude named Matt Gartner. Nobody famous or anything like that, but he's a financial literacy advocate for young children, as you can read here. And basically what kids are teaching their money without even knowing sometimes can play a part in the way that we become adults coming from up under our parents. And then when we have kids ourselves, we might be passing some of those things on too. His perspective on money was, he goes out to schools, I guess he gives these talks, and he gives them $100 bill challenge. Now, this ain't any different than what even me and some of my friends play. If you hit the lotto, what would you do with the money? If you had all the money to start a business, what would you do with it? Those kinds of things. But asking kids what they would do with $100, and he would show them the $100 bill. He would ask them what they would do, and 9 out of 10 kids would respond, would say they would buy something. And that basically is showing him that kids are programmed to consume at an early age. Now, I know we're all consumers and we live in this capitalistic society where we have to spend money for businesses to make money, to hire people, to keep this whole economy thing going. But consumer culture is getting crazy in the way and the means that we can buy things. And at Amazon, you could just, right now while I'm talking to y'all, I could have one of my other 2 screens over here and just buy stuff. I could just think of something and I can buy it. I could, whatever it is. And the ability to do that is fine if it's in control. But as it relates to your money, it could be a real big money pit for you to just consume things without conscious thought of it, without some of those other tactics like having an accountability system. When you teach these things to your kids, then they grow up under those same means. Now, one of the things we did for my kid as he was growing up was we set up an account and we gave him a controlled debit card or secured debit card that he could take that money. And a few of my other friends do this with their kids too. Older kids, we're talking 12, 13, 14 and up, where you can take that money, spend it on certain things. We could teach them about saving, teach them about paying tithes, teach them about potential charity, and I smile at that because that's a little bit tougher of a lesson to teach, but you can do it. There's a lot of information out there about how to do that successfully, but being able to teach my son the value of $1, and when he spends all of it, how he has none and not to ask me for any was an interesting little game that we got to play, especially as me and my son's mom are co-parenting. it was always a conversation of, how much is in there, what could he potentially buy, kind of monitoring what he was using it on, whether it was just straight candy and snacks and stuff like that, or was he buying, I'm thinking ringtones or whatever was digitally available at that time. I've seen him buy video games. I've seen him buy a bunch of different stuff, but I also noticed as he got into the routine of, okay, I only have this much. If I spend that, then I don't have this, and maybe I want something at a later date. He would buy, what was a stupid thing he was buying? It was like these little, it was something similar to Pokemon cards for us when we were kids, but it was like these little things that they were playing with. I think it was Yu-Gi-Oh something or another. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he started to be, actually, you could watch him become a little bit smarter, a little bit more tactical about how he spent his money, and even looking forward to some things like birthdays or some day where he's like, okay, I'm gonna get a little bit more and then I could do whatever else it is. It was just interesting to watch. It really went well up until 16-ish, 17-ish, when I started noticing he was withdrawing the money and I had no idea what he was doing with it. And me and his mom had to talk, and we just had to put a wrap on that because we don't want to give him an avenue to nonsense. But the point of it being, I think to this day, as he's working and earning his money on his own now at 18, you can still see some of those elements. I've even heard him communicating like verbally to his friends about, nah, we shouldn't do that. We should save this or yada, yada, yada. It's really, really interesting. And I say weird because you raise this like little thing into a bigger thing. And then you watch him kind of become you literally and hear things that you've said to him parroted back. But as it relates to money, it's a good feeling when it's going well, but also you see some of your bad tendencies. Like, I'm sure he's a spender, like I'm a spender. And you know what? I don't know what his mom qualified as. I would say she's a saver. So he probably got a little bit of both, hopefully more of that side than me. But the goal is for you to teach your kids good habits. Now, Gartner went on to say there's a way parents can play a role in an active role in teaching their kids certain things. And I'll just run through them really quick. These are 4 really basic things, but teach them how to spend cautiously, save diligently, invest wisely, and give generously. I don't have to go into detail of what each of those means, but this man's smarter than me. This is what he do for a living. And I would suggest if you aren't, to do this, because in that article, it referenced kids as young as 9 are picking up the habits taught to them by their parents. So if you got kids in that age range, you might want to consider, what Steve asked what I was spending money on, a bunch of different stuff. But you might want to consider teaching some of these things to your younger kids, or even whatever age your kids are. If they're above 9, you might want to just start having these conversations. And if you know you got some weak points in your spending habits, to point those out and to teach it out of them so they don't repeat the mistakes that you set up for yourself. I don't like that Steve slid up in here asking weird questions because he got enough history on me to know exactly the answer to his own question. But that's the old me. We're not talking about that, Steve. We talk about today. What you spending money on today? Now, as far as let me see if I can get one of these videos.
Changing your family tree,
and throw these up.
Some for you in this inheritance, and a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Proverbs. And so we're going to do that, but you don't get that if it's going to harm you. And it would harm you if you don't have the skeletal structure, the muscle sinew in this area to carry it. And so when you leave kids that were, quote, in the old days we used to say so-and-so was a spoiled kid. If you have a spoiled kid and you leave them a bunch of money, well, they're a reality show star later. That's their only skill. And so they can't do anything. And it's sad. They're sad humans and they struggle. And then they fall down all over the place and everybody's watching them do it. And they do it with big numbers around them. It's awful. And so instead, what we want is this is a family that is a family of service, and this money is a responsibility. And if you view it that way, you will have the opportunity to manage it.
Tribal Chief says he'd like to donate to the Man, get out of here with your nonsense, bro. All right, so this video I wanted to talk about your relationship with money, and I'm gonna let Dave Ramsey give his explanation on how that works for him. Hey, y'all let me know if y'all can hear this video.
Dave, you know, you've talked about this a lot through your book, through your work, through a number of your books about how we don't really get educated on these ideas in school. And you must find it shocking that across 30 years, that hasn't massively changed. What is it that you think we're missing out on at school? What are the key principles, as you were mentioning, that you need to learn at school or that you need to learn to start so that you can have a healthy relationship with your finances and money?
Well, there's a level of mythology that has been spread about money in our culture that was spread with an agenda, frankly. It was all, if I was a bank, I would teach everyone that they needed a credit score. And the reason I would teach them they need a credit score, and the way to get a credit score is to borrow money from me and pay it back to me so that you can raise your score, so you can borrow money from me, so you can pay it back to me, so you can raise your score, so you can borrow money from me, so you can pay it back to me, so you can raise your score. It's a great plan if you're a bank. And but then it was put out there that now the FICO score is like biblical truth or something. And it's not. It's a banking program to get people to borrow money. But now, and so what's happened with some financial literacy programs in schools is they're going to teach you to build your FICO score because that's been accepted now as norm rather than actual fact. Well, it's accepted as fact, even though it's not a fact. And so what we've done is what we have. I mean, our antidote would be to say, okay, we're going to teach people to live on a budget and how to do a budget. We're going to teach them to live on less than they make, a concept Congress can't grasp. We're going to teach them to be generous, outlandishly generous. And we're going to teach them to save and invest and the power of compound interest. And these things are agnostic to the banking community. And so we don't.
Okay, so that was, now I hear the echo. Let me turn this off. So that was Dave Ramsey talking about your relationships with money and some of the early things that we're taught. If you don't know who he is, go do your research. He does a whole show surrounding money and how to, I think he wrote a book on how to create millionaires, one that I do plan on investing in here soon. But in any case, the point being that even in that quick idea that he talked about on the Jay Shetty show of how the things that we're taught about money can oftentimes throw us off, that the banking system was designed in a way to teach us to depend on it so we can keep I even just referenced it earlier, a good credit score allows you to be able to borrow money, which can help you get some of the things that you want and need in the future. But it also could be a means of keeping you in debt to the betterment of others who are making money off of you having that debt, such as a bank, such as certain businesses. We learn part of what we know from our parents. We also learn part of what we know from the systems that are designed around even what our parents even understand and their parents and so on. What I would suggest and what I plan on doing is that there are classes, there are books, there are a bunch of different things out there to teach us to break certain habits that we've ingrained in ourselves as a culture, as a society, as a people sometimes, as Americans, or whatever demographic you fit into that could really play a crazy role in how what you do with your money and how much of it you keep versus how much of it you spend and so on and so forth. I was doing some other research and I saw a really interesting demographic as it relates to genders and how we address and deal with money from debt.org. According to Experian, as it relates to, men versus women and credit cards, women hold at about average $6,232 in debt on credit cards versus men's $6,300. I'm gonna just abbreviate. As it relates to mortgages, women have a little less at $192,368, and men $211,000. Now, overall, Experian, this is one of the 3 credit bureaus that report, who basically is where we get one of our credit scores or part of our credit score from. They reported this information, and Debt.org appears to be a nonprofit organization designed to provide information as it relates to debt on a broad scale. And they had a lot of different tools to sort that down as small as you want or as broad as you want. But Experian found that men have more debt than women, including 2% more in credit cards, 20% more in personal loans, 16+% on auto loans, and 9.7% more on mortgage debt. I'm sure there are a bunch of variables that play a part in that. Let me get this up out of here. I'm sure there's a bunch of variables that play a part in that, and that I'm not sure how that report looks when you're married, as I am not married yet. If it differentiates households versus non, or if the man's the head of household filing in certain ways. But as far as I understand it, Experian is an individualistic reporting of your credit score, and there's no like couples credit score. So those numbers are kind of interesting. And as men, we might want to be aware of some of what our tendencies are. I know that Debt.org also had a report on the obvious fact, the one that's overly stated, on how men make more money than women, and that could play a part in us borrowing more or feeling like we have more of our budget to put towards certain loans. I'm not here to guess all the different factors, just report the information. But the key is, I know myself as a man and my dad as a man versus my spouse and my mother. I remember my mother was better at saving than my dad was. And I know I told you earlier that my spouse is better than me at it too. And that could just be a mentality thing. I think I have the ability to dig myself out of any hole, and that could play a part in me acquiring more debt. Right now, I don't know who has the most debt. I hear her clicking around in the kitchen. I think I might have the most debt, but not by a lot. I've been paying down a lot of my debt. But I also don't want to be the reason that this ship starts to sink, and that she looking at me crazy because she expects me to provide. And here I am dragging us down with frivolous, nonsensical debt. One thing she likes to say to me in jest is that I have expensive tastes. I don't think I do, and maybe I'm just comparing myself to others around me, but she says I do. I guess out of the two of us, I do. But with that being said, just being smarter about putting in place those systems of accountability, teaching myself a little more about what's what and better ways to save our money and better ways to invest our money. I told her we're looking into high yield investing accounts. We're looking into, there's already 401ks and health savings accounts and a whole bunch of different ways for us to do better with our money. Not that we down bad now, we make pretty good money, but the key being smarter about it, especially knowing that might be one of my weaker points, especially out of the two of us, is a real good way to set a goal, obtain those goals, and then push to the next level of goal, and not living in a broke mindset. You don't have to spend every dollar you earn. You don't get to take any of it with you after you die, so give something back. And so on and so forth. So salute to Dave Ramsey. I had a longer video by TED, but I actually was saved that, I say TED, it was a TED talk given by actually a dope woman, the Shonda Brown, who heads the teachers, it's a teachers fund of saving money. She's the CEO, and she's also on the boards of some big companies like Nike and a few others. Let me see if I can get that up. While I pull that up, somebody entertain me with a question or a comment about anything I said so far. I see the problem. So this thing throwing me for a loop, and it don't want to act right. All right, so here's a video from TED. Fast forward. So this is 6 principles.
Financial health for a typical American household can be stressful. We know that 46% of all Americans would struggle coming up with $400 in the event of an emergency. And 60% of all Americans will face that emergency within 12 months or less. When you ask the question, what does money mean to you? Most people will say things like, I feel anxious. And so the insecurities come, the shame comes. I think we have a fraught relationship with money because it comes with judgment. When you're not able to pay your bills on time, you can personalize that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not smart. I don't want anyone to know that I am very insecure with money. I don't want anyone to know that I am super stressed out. So now let's change the narrative. You can't do it alone. And that's when your squad has to come in. It's taboo. We typically don't talk about our stresses when it comes to money. We need to come together as a group of friends, no judgment, no shame. Celebrate the fact that we've made a decision that we want to have a better relationship with money. That is worth applauding or snapping your fingers about. Once you've done that, then you get real. Nothing should be off limits. Where does this relationship come from? Why am I spending all this money on things that don't align with my goals? What are your fears? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? But then we start to take action. What can we do this week, or what can we do this month?
So I just realized there's a delay. I'm actually listening to the stream. It's like 2 seconds behind the actual live. So sorry for that little pause. But I paused it right here after number 1. She talked about depending on the squad. And I thought that was really interesting. I think she holds lofty enough status and probably has enough money to have an informed opinion about this. But I personally, I'm not saying I can't depend on my squad, but maybe it's because we're all men. I can't see a scenario where that's something that's happening, where we're all like, maybe depending on my squad for information. Like a month ago, I was asking them what are some of the tools that they use to deal with their budget, and a couple of the homies hit me back with what's Intuit's one, whatever it's called, and the one I ended up using was Pocket Guard. That's dependent on them for information. For example, me and my spouse will be in the housing market, and there's a bunch of people around me who own houses or who have mortgages. And I'm definitely looking to them for tips and information, different ways to avoid those pitfalls. And in fact, let me go away from that for a sec. To avoid those pitfalls, the pitfalls that they may have hit, such as housing inspections and things that they might have missed, or different ways to obtain the proper loan to make sure that it's set up in a way that benefits me and her. I would depend on my squad for that. Information, knowledge, experience, and things of that type. As far as like, hey, matter of fact, Don and Steven here, like, yo, let me get some money. That just feels weird. That feels odd. I don't know. Maybe if we're talking about putting in on a business or doing something together, like investment property or something like that. Yeah. I'm actually I'm not gonna play the rest of that video. You can look it up. It's on TED. Actually, I'll include the links to both the videos that I show here for y'all to click them and watch them in their entirety. But she gave out 6 principles. The gist of her 6 principles span the gamut of my facts of different ways to save money, to make sure that you talk about money. One thing me and my spouse do, and I'm not gonna say like to do, one thing that we do is we have conversations about money. I'm very candid about just saying, hey, here's the things that are coming up for me. Here's the things I want to buy. And she's a little bit more of a, let's sit down and have a formal conversation with Excel spreadsheets and such to discuss this in a little more detail. But in any case, we do it. We don't shy away from the conversation because I don't want any surprises. I don't want to be one of those guys that I've seen this on like TV and movies where a guy would like lose his job and be acting like you're going to work for X amount of time, you're leaving the house and all this stupid stuff, and just basically, I'm not trying to be that guy who does something that puts us in a financial hole or ruin, because I just didn't have the conversation with her. As with anything in a relationship, and this isn't relationship advice, but you should be talking to your spouse about even the things that you don't necessarily, I'm not gonna say that you don't want them to know. What I mean is, if you keep secrets, that's an easy way for things to get out of control in any level, on anything that you're dealing with or struggling with or concerned about. And just talking about it. She also went on to talk about investing. There are different ways that you can invest, and I don't mean fast money ways like crypto, which I did dabble in a little bit with some fun money. Neither here nor there, I invested like $50, ended up making like $3,000 off of that. But with all seriousness, I think, what was it, in Beef? This ain't a spoiler, but there was a point where he had like 20K and he put it all on the crypto and woke up and was super broke. That was nuts. Never do anything stupid like that. But there are long-term funds and mutual funds and different ways for you to invest your money smartly. And again, this ain't financial advice. I'm looking into these things. I'm reading about them and trying to learn about them, because as I progress through the remainder of this year towards our marriage in September and crossing over into 2024, when we're going to be looking for houses, I want to make sure that we not only have enough money, but we're saving smartly and properly to not get beat out by inflation or end up in some kind of Ponzi scheme or just some weird thing. Just do your proper research, find somebody who know a little something about it, pay for a consultation or whatever you got to do to make sure you're investing properly. And the other two principles escape me right now. But the gist of it was, I thought her title, the fact that Ted endorsed it or gave her the opportunity to speak on it, said enough about these 6 principles. And these, during my research, I found that a lot of it was repeated, and it all seems like sound advice. And these aren't conversations, if I'm being totally real, my parents may not have been in a position to discuss these with me, just like I wasn't to discuss them with my son. But I wish I had a better grasp on the entire idea of what money is, and not just something you earn so you can go and buy stuff. There's a lot to it. And I said it earlier, I'm almost 40, I'm 37. And as my dad pushes up towards retirement age, and he's having these conversations like, yeah, son, when I retire, and my mom, like younger than him, but still, they're both getting to that point. I'm hearing crazy numbers, and I know inflation is going to make this worse. If they say you need something like nearly $1 million saved up to live from retirement to the rest of your life comfortably, that sounds crazy. But it also sounds crazy to me to live and work through retirement like my grandfather did, until basically he just couldn't work and the doctor had to tell him to stop. Neither sound good to me. I'd rather be close to $1 million saved. I think it's 500 each or something like that. But we want to be able to pay all your bills, have all your medical stuff taken care of, have all your everything set up. And right now, from age 37 until retirement, I'm going to be putting everything, all the work I'm doing, like this is the Unfinished Work show. So all the work I'm doing is going to be geared towards creating and sustaining a life after income isn't available. And God forbid anything happens in between now and then, like a major injury or major disability. All these things are possible and on the table. And if you don't have your money stacked a certain way, those are burdens that you put in on family members, on the insurance system, on your spouse or whoever to cover you during that. And I promise you right now, in all honesty and transparency, in the beginning of that video, she quoted it. There's a certain percentage of Americans who are basically just one major life happening away from being in financial ruin. Any major medical thing that happens could put me in financial ruin right now. Any major thing that has a detriment, even though God willing, I maintain my ability to go to work. Even that, man, sometimes I'll just be tired. And not saying I don't want to go to work. I'm saying I'm getting older and I feel it. That even the job I do now, these 12 and 14 hour days, these 3 a.m. wake ups ain't it. And I can't imagine what I feel like for my father, who got me by 20 years. What does it look like for him to think, man, do I really have enough saved up to just be straight? Or am I going to be a burden to my kids and his girlfriend or whoever financially is going to take responsibility for him? I don't want him to be that. I don't want me to be that. I don't want none of y'all to be that. So if you got some work to put in this regard, put it in. If you need to, whatever you need to do to turn around. I was going to offer some examples, but Truth is, you know your situation better than I do. I know what mine is. I've just been transparent with y'all about mine, and I'm open about the way I live my life, but I don't want to be one of those Americans that get hit with, like, say they just cancel my job. Hey, no more job out of business, good luck. And I'm out here on the market with a bunch of other people, even though my skills are somewhat specialized, still don't want to be in that position to where something happened to my dog. Be in that position where I'm down bad because I didn't put in enough money. In any case, I just realized I went over time. The last thing I want to cover really quick is self-care. I'm even going to put up the title card. Basically, as it relates to self-care, what is money for you? Is it calming? Is it something that, what's up, bro? Is it something that causes you stress? Is it something that puts you in a bind when it comes up? Do you feel free or liberated by your money? Even for those who have it, the amount of money you have, is it a constant worry? Are you constantly in a state of like Mr. Krabs where you're trying to hold on and keep all your money? Or are you comfortable where you at? Do you feel good about the plans you got going forward? Is your budget tight? Is there frivolous spending in check? Are any of these things that you're considering? But as it relates to how you care for yourself, you can just move this. Of how you care for yourself, another part of that also is spending the money on actual self-care. Things such as, hey, that was weird. Things such as anything that you need, like taking care of your skin or putting in on your dental, getting your eyes checked. A lot of that falls under medical, but some of it goes above what medical costs. You might have to pay some out of pocket. There's other self-care things like limiting your stress, taking vacations. And I don't mean expensive vacations, just opportunities for you to escape the rat race that you might be in. Just using your money to take care of yourself, buying comfort things such as like this super fancy chair that I did not buy, but would have been costly had I bought it. Salute to the homie who gave it to me. But how you living on your day to day? What is your bed like? What is the amenities in your house like? Is your water hard versus soft? Or, do you put funds or budget funds properly into the spaces that you want them to do good for you? And then if it's a cause of stress or if it's like a point of stress for you, just look up some of these videos. Ted had another talk that I was going to share with y'all where the woman was just talking about her relationship with money and how there were points where she was earning some pretty good money and still living in a position like she had more than a broke mentality. She had like if I don't keep this money, catastrophe situation going. And I can't imagine having the means and still not being happy because I'm still just don't have a proper identification of what money is, how it can work for me, how it can make my life easier, and the lives of the people around me, such as my kids and so on and so forth. And I can't imagine. She said, that lady in the video said she had a kid too. She learned it from her mother and she's probably teaching it to her kid. And that's very unfortunate. And I would not like any of my bad habits or bad ideas about money, taking loans, like getting into college and taking student debt and buying stupid stuff with your money and getting these payday loans so you can do some nonsense. All of these are bad habits that you can learn yourself. You can unlearn them, but also you can teach them to your kids, and you don't want them to have to unlearn something you could just avoid. This whole thing ain't about just kids. It's about your relationship with money. I think we back now. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here because the system is telling me I'm done. Thank y'all for joining the Unfinished Work Show. This episode was I Need Money. I need money, so if you want to send me some, feel free to. And just follow the facts. Your faith, accountability, community, what you could teach someone to learn, and then properly self-caring as it relates to all your money. Thank y'all for being here. I'm not sure what I'm doing next week. There will be an episode, but I'll let y'all know what it is sometime in the midweek. Thank y'all for being here. I'm Mike Lake. This is the Unfinished Work Show. My creator's not done with me yet. He ain't done with you either. See y'all next week.